You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market, from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody, that rockin' tunage means it's time once again for a little show we like to call around these parts the option block. What is it? It's all kinds of stuff. It's education, it's analysis, it's unusual activity, it's strategery, it's your questions, it's a whole bunch of fun stuff. It's what's trading, all mixed together into the heady stew. That is the option block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. Once again, coming to you live from the southern studio here. You can tell it's southern studio because the storm clouds are gathering yet again. The second I go live is when the storm clouds gather here in the south. The Florida sun gods apparently don't like us broadcasting down here, but we'll do what we can to power through. It's a daily 4 p.m. storm here. It's kind of what they do down here. So we'll roll with the punches. Hopefully you guys will as well. Hopefully the Mixler is working. I know last week there were some issues, but hopefully you guys can all get in. Let us know. Hit us up. You guys certainly do if you can't get in, so let us know. You guys know the drill. Join us live every Monday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, via Mixler, MIXLR, or, of course, as most of you do, get the podcast after the fact via the website or iTunes or wherever you like to get it, including the new Google Podcast app. Check it out. Play with it. Have fun with it. Or just grab our own app if you want to just mainline our stuff. I can certainly recommend that. However you listen live after the fact, hit us up. Questions, comments, insights, pearls of wisdom, all that good stuff. We do like to hear from you guys. And joining me on the program today, I got a couple guys I think who are smiling with today's and just week's whole back and forth and all sorts of fun stuff. Starting off with, it's a rare day where he's happy, so let's bring him on first. He is the Rock Lobster, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, how are things in the hinterlands of Maine, sir?
It's raining. Oh my gosh, we've had like the 24-hour deluge, but other than that, things are quite lovely in the town of Maine. Quite lovely, actually, or town of Maine.
I didn't know. I didn't know you lived in the town of Maine in Maine. How confusing that must be for you guys.
And you know what? Almost every town in Maine has a Main Street, an MAINE street.
That's
Go figure.
Very equally confusing.
It's hugely confusing.
I'm going to Maine and Maine. We're in Maine. Oh, Maine. It's the corner of Maine and Maine and Maine.
Yeah, we also have the town of Mexico. What else we have? Paris.
There's a Mexico, Maine, really?
Totally.
Wow. I kind of want to visit that now to see what Mexico, Maine looks like.
Somebody just gave up on they're like, what are we going to name this town? Mexico.
It's got like lobster and New England clam chowder and then burritos.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it is more in the hinterlands of Maine, so we'll
Man, I totally want to go there.
Lobster burritos. That sounds good. And you know who that other excited voice is Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Wealth Advisor. At least I should say used to be. Now from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, are you going to join me for our road trip to Mexico, Maine, where we have some lobster burritos? What do you think?
Man, I can't wait. Even though it's likely not going to happen, just the thought of it makes my mouth water. That just sounds like a great time.
No, it all sounds like a great time because you just heard a little bit of it. It's the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. I do love the old drops. One of the nice things about being in the Southern studio, get a little bit of a flashback to the old days on the network when we used to sound like that. Now we sound a little bit different. Of course, all sorts of fun happening on the show and indeed on the old network today, or I should say on the old markets today as well, on the network as well. You guys got hit with some good shows today on the network, but of course the markets are where the action was. As the day wound to a close here, we saw a little bit of reversal of fortunes out there in the markets. You know, we had been down slightly, kind of mixed earlier in the day, and then of course the markets kind of getting ahead of steam back underneath them to finish up the session. Most of the major indices up 0.5% or over. S&P up about 0.6%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ, which was kind of bucking the trend all day, finishing up about 0.8%. The Dow, ever the laggard on this side anyway, up about 0.4%. We had a decent range out there, though, looking at all things index. S&P had about a 33 handle range out there. So a pretty active day as people are still trying to come to grips with everything out there in the Trump Twitter sphere and who he's charging more tariffs on and who's not and who's getting all this other fun stuff going on out there. So it has been a lot of back and forth, a lot of tumult, a lot of volatility in the old marketplace this week. Today, actually having some of it come off again with the VIX closing just shy of 17, having a decent range, about a 2.5, almost 2.6 point range out there, getting us just almost hitting 19, 18.99, and then coming off on the dark side down to about a little bit shy of 16.5. So a nice 2.5 and plus range out there in VIX Cash land today. So a lot of interesting stuff. But I mentioned he was happy. He's a smiling cat today. So let's start with him. Mr. Rock Lobster, a lot of things going on. So let's start in VIX land. What zone are we in? What's going on in VIX land? I know you guys have been slinging a lot of VXX upside, now probably taking that off as VXX kind of retreating a little bit again today, only off about a third of a point, 38.20. Still about close to 8 handles higher than where it was about a week ago. So a lot of interesting stuff. Let's start there. VIX zones, everything volatility. Then we'll get into what else is putting a smile on your face today.
The vol, I mean, we did have a pretty good rally. Like for my vol newsletter stuff, I sold some vol, but I had a ton more to go. I didn't get enough net delta in the position to sell a lot. So it's kind of, I'm almost about to call vol fatigue where, VIX is still a pretty decent level. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Everything's just kind of treading around and not doing much. But yes, we're in zone 2, and we're just kind of trading there. It's a 16 vol market, and normally vol needs, volatility. It needs catalyst, and like the catalyst has been trade, and for lack of a better reason, yesterday, I think just Congress not being able to pass any kind of immigration bill. I'm still trying to figure out what we pay these guys for because clearly, and these girls, because clearly they don't do anything. Just do something, and they can't even do something. So even some kind of compromise would have, I think, anyway. So I think we sold off a little on that, strangely enough, because I couldn't see any other kind of headline news. So from a vol point of view, we're still kind of a very flat, very uncertain market, kind of flattish out till December, which usually means, at least from a vol trader point of view, just nobody knows what the hell's going on. It's just really confusing. And we could stay like this for a while, bopping around between, 15 and 19 or 20 on whatever the latest, because there's no real resolution, right? It's kind of like it's kind of like the Euro crisis where, right now we have this sort of trade war. Nobody knows how it's going to end up. And it's adding to daily volatility in a tweet. So until there's sort of until either Donald declares victory, I think when he declares victory in the trade war would be a great vol selling opportunity. But right now, at least as far that's the kind of the trend of how things happen with that guy. We haven't seen it, so there's going to be a lot of vacillation, I still think.
You mentioned
vacillating at a higher level.
You mentioned vol fatigue at the top there. You mean people are just kind of they don't really want to buy it anymore. They don't really want to sell it. That's kind of why we're vacillating. Is that what you mean by vol fatigue?
Exactly. So what happens was on, let's say, a close to close basis, what you're having is you have intraday range, but you don't have those high close to close swings anymore. So the average true range is going to be higher, but the close to close range is kind of muted. So, we have we're trading 16, 17 vol, but we're only up, 0.5% on the day or something. So normally you would say a 0.5 point rally and they would crush vol, right? And they're not. So that's what vol fatigue is. You kind of sat there as a market maker like, when is all this going to end? You'd be sitting in a bit, and because the vol, everything is sort of illiquid. Nobody really wants to buy it. Nobody wants to sell it. Yet we're stuck here at this much higher level, waiting for somebody to pull the plug on volatility or give the market a little bit more of a signal. So that's what I call vol fatigue. So you don't have enough, I would say, close to close vol, but there's enough sort of intraday to keep everybody from really running out there and selling stuff with conviction. So I think that's kind of where the vol regime is right now. So I like our strategy. Our vol newsletter stuff reflects that. But it's just hard to make any money on it because you're kind of just picking like, okay, we have a little rally, I'll sell a little bit of my long vol. Okay, but we're not going quite down enough to make any money for any short vol stuff to kick in. So there's not enough of a range of really money making. So strangely, this to me is like iron condor time. Like 4 or 5 times a year, I would say is probably good for an iron condor. Most of the time, it's a crappy trade. And now it's just vol fatigue. We're not really going anywhere. Sell 2500s and sell 2800s and call it a day. Because it's going to be hard for us really to do much in there. And you have 16 or 17 vol to sell instead of 10. So it's a little bit better of an opportunity than normal. So at least that's what was catching my mind. And then also we were talking earlier just about Walgreens, it was a little back spread I had. I just got a gift today before my birthday tomorrow. It crapped out. It was just kind of like it was a bit of a winner, and then it became a home run today because they are going to get Amazon. So.
Yeah, they came for it today. We're going to get to that in a little bit in the odd block. We were starting to put together the odd block earlier today, and I was like, "What's going on with all these pharmaceutical names?" And then we started looking at it. We said, "Oh, it's yet another Amazon annihilation going on. Oh, Amazon's in your business. Sold. Just
exactly.
Out.
I have more color on that later from one of my pharmaceutical expert persons. So
I look forward to your pharmaceutical expertise, sir.
This.
It's funny. I was hanging out. We're in the Southern Studio. I was kind of hanging out poolside today. You know how I knew vol was selling off pretty aggressively? It was when this crazy bid I had put in a long time ago for some VXX puts got hit today, and I got a notice on my phone. And I was like, oh, I guess we're selling off aggressively. In terms of vol, when these puts I put in so long ago, I forgot about them, and for a ridiculous level, it got filled for size. And I was like, oh, I probably should go see what's going on. So I packed up and came back up. But yes, that was my first alert that things were moving a little bit today in the right direction from a vol perspective. By the way, we were joking before about Mexico, Maine. I always said we had very worldly listeners because at least someone listening right now, I like the handle, Studini, says he's been to Mexico, Maine. It's a nice town. It's in the middle of nowhere, but still nice. So there we go.
Well, it is the gateway to the Western Mountains in Maine. So I'm just letting you know.
I gotta go to Mexico, Maine now.
I'll take pictures and you can post them in the Option Insider thing. So
I want to go to the one Tex-Mex restaurant in Mexico, Maine, just to try it out. I want to try a burrito in Maine. It sounds wrong enough to be right.
A lobsterito.
Maybe it's got lobster, some maple syrup, probably some New England clam chowder all mixed into it. Sounds awful and yet delicious at the same time.
I don't think they put maple syrup on everything.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's not Vermont. That would be Vermont, but still,
yes,
they're close enough to have some of that. Inherited maple syrup love. Speaking of love, Mr. Uncle Mike. Lots of things are catching your eye, I think, today, including our audience. We asked them. It is Thursday. It is strategy block time. So Uncle Mike will be holding court in a little bit. We gave him some fun choices, Uncle Mike. Would you like to hear your choices for this week, sir?
I saw them on the show notes, but let's go over them again so the audience can hear.
Yes, let me pull it up and give us some live voting results here as we're going. So, Uncle Mike, your choices for today, if the audience for what they want you to talk about today. We said, hey, quite frankly, what do you want Uncle Mike to talk about today? What do you want him to explain to you? We gave you 4 choices, well, 3 and an extra. Selling call spreads versus selling the calls outright, or a nice advanced order overview. I know he's been wanting to do that for a while, so we put that out there. Or just blanket when to sell calls. When do you really want to sell these calls? Covered, otherwise, naked units, all this fun stuff. He'll break it down for you. Or if that's not for it, if you were excited last time by him breaking down dance trends, then we have yet another one. We have his history of urban dance, according to Uncle Mike Tusa. So I'm personally rooting for that one. We shall see. Right now, Uncle Mike, you can breathe a sigh of relief. 36% saying they want you to talk about selling call spreads versus calls. So we shall see. 27% saying when to sell the calls outright. Only 19% saying they want to see you break down the history of urban dance. I thought that would be higher. Does that surprise you, sir?
You know what? I actually have some. I could probably pull off urban dance if it wins. So be careful what you ask for, folks, because you might get some information on this.
Listeners, get over there. Add options right now. You got about 20 odd minutes to make your voices heard before we go live with that segment. So if you want to see him break down the history of urban dance and what will certainly be an unforgettable strategy plot, have at it. Otherwise, Uncle Mike, what's catching your eye today, sir?
A couple things. In addition to what Andrew said, the other thing that I think we need to keep an eye on right now, not necessarily so much today, but over the last couple days, is black gold, Texas tea. If you take a look at crude oil, it's been going up recently. Jed Clampett and all the Clampetts are pretty happy lately with all their oil holdings, with what's going on with that. So I think that with the action of the markets yesterday, it appeared that during the day, oil actually came out and did pretty well early, and that sold off a little bit. I mean, it didn't completely hold it, but oil is something that looks like it has definitely kind of held the markets up a little bit. Now, ironically, for today, even though oil had an update today and natural gas has been relatively flat, XLE, the oil sector, is actually down 10 cents on the day. So it'll be interesting to see how XLE actually reacts. And that yesterday, the beginning of the day, or earlier in the day, oil went up quite a bit. XLE was actually up quite a bit as well, and that's come down. And it's been relatively flat today. So with oil going higher, curious to see if maybe there's some type of things that don't make sense per se. The only other thing that I could get from this is the fact that perhaps maybe XLE led the charge a little bit earlier on it, but still, I think we might have a little bit more room to the upside with XLE if oil can kind of hold these levels at this stage. But we'll see. As always, that goes along with my 50% guarantee as to what could happen tomorrow. Some other things that are going on in the marketplace, in addition to what Andrew said, it looks like a lot of what we had today. Tech recovered a little bit today from yesterday. My beloved Apple is up 0.73% on the day. Some other things that we have going on in the marketplace. Consumer discretionaries are up a decent amount, as well as financials. They've recovered a little bit. We're still not up to where we were, but we have had some recovery. So excited to see how we can react tomorrow. One thing that was interesting also about yesterday, at least in SPY, we've been in a range recently of kind of between 270 and 274. We broke out to like the 280 level a couple of weeks ago, and then now we're back down around the 270 level. With the open of the market today below the 270 level, I was kind of concerned about that because we were below the 270 level, but we did recover from that, and markets did go higher today. We didn't finish on the highs. We are roughly 7 points off the highs, at least in the S&P anyway. So a lot of action going on, and this is looking forward to the next week to see what happens, but we do have that 4th of July thing coming, so we'll see what happens tomorrow, because I really don't see a lot of volume coming in the following week.
Yeah, that's what we thought kind of for this week, too. That might be a quiet week. But then, a tweet or two here or there tends to upset the apple cart. We'll see if that continues into the holiday weekend or if the much-anticipated VIX malaise sets in. We shall see. Meanwhile, it's time for us to see what's cooking in the weird side of the option space. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
Oh, Uncle Mike and the Rock Laps. You're missing out not hearing these awesome old school drops that we got going here. You have to just imagine them or perhaps listen to the podcast afterwards so you too can enjoy them as we are enjoying them here on the old live show. Of course, welcome to the Odd Block. This is indeed the portion of the show where we get a little weird. See what's cooking out here in the land of weird options trades. Doesn't get much weirder on a given day than Tesla and these weird mystery puts. Tesla, by the way, feeling the love. The NASDAQ was up nearly about 0.8%. Tesla up double that percentage-wise, up 1.6%, or about $5.50, pushing 350 again, 349.93. But we don't care about the stock. No, we're looking here at some far, far out of the money puts. In particular, we got the Jan 2019 50s, our old friend, the mystery puts. Why are people trading them? What's going on with these? We've been bandying that one about for, I think over a year now, and they continue to grow, continue to trade, including today, a day when the stock's up over 5 handles. People still wanting to sling some of these Jan 2019 mystery puts to the tune of nearly 1,100. 1,088 to be precise, going up on these 50 puts. They're trading just shy of $1, 90 cents at 99 here. So 1,088 hitting the tape, 58,422 open on that strike. If that's not enough for you, also almost a similar number of the Jan 2019 20s. You're getting pretty bearish there now. Jan 2019 20s, 1,300 of those lighting it up today. Those are trading right on 25 cents. 11,000 open on that strike. So yeah, just to reiterate, listeners, those are bets effectively that Tesla will go kaput by this January. So you're talking 6 months and change. Tesla's out, shy of the 20 handle when they went out at 350 today. Just to reiterate what the heck it is we're talking about here. And if that's not far enough out for you listeners, and perhaps not far enough down, let's go out to the Jan 2020 50 puts. A little bit lighter today. 1,100 of their counterparts of 2019 going up. Only 85 going up in Jan 2020 50 puts. So a lighter day. 20,000, though, open on this strike. So this strike grown some decent OI these days as well. 66 worth of noting of the Jan 2020 20 puts going up. Those are trading for about $1.20 if you're curious about if you want to sling some of those bad boys. Right around $1.20 for the 20 puts. So if you think going bankrupt by this January is a bit of a bridge too far, and instead you want to push it out a little bit, you think they're going to go bankrupt a year from then, well then, of course, Jan 2020 20 puts are your trades of the day. Let's move on to what else was lighting it up out here on our own personal tapes. Let's kick things off with ticker symbol DVN. This is Devon Energy Corp, closing today 43.58. Pretty much up slightly on the day here, but not a huge underlying day for DVN. They had, looks like about a 50-cent range, so not bad for them, but not a huge move. Still, this is a name that does about 20,000 contracts a day, decent paper. Today doing 106,000, about 11-1 calls over puts, and that's pretty much where our eye was drawn all the way out, listeners. Back to Jan. People loving to sling some Jan out here in good old Devon. This time it was a Jan, looks like a house money roll. Actually, a Jan Ock, listeners. A house money roll that caught our eye. It was the Ock 42s going up 25,000 times for 445. Paper crushing the bid 25,000 times. And then saying, that's not enough. Coming back hard, coming back for size. Going to the Jan 50s, so 8 handles north, and a few months longer, doing those for $2.33, 50,000 times. So pretty much a 1x2. And I mentioned, listeners, the stock pretty much closing 43.58. So those 42s in the money. This has all the signature hallmarks, listeners, of a textbook house money roll. Paper looks like they came in picking up some of those OC 42s. I don't have the exact date when they're opened. Maybe Mr. Rock Lobster can look that up while I'm looking here. and then make some money on them. Turns around, says, you know what? The party's not over yet. I'm putting my money back where my mouth is to the tune of 2x. So again, sold these for $445, put it on for effectively 2x at $233, so right around $460. So pretty much putting that money back to work and saying, I think the party's still going. Jan 50s is the name of the game. Let's look here at a chart of DVN over the past year, see what they've been up to. And let's see, a year ago, they were trading pretty much $30 and change, 31. So way shy of where they are right now, 43.5. They're closing today. They got up as high throughout the year, right about end of January, right around $45, so a little bit north of where they are now. And then they sold off pretty hard again in all that tumult of Q1 and Q2. And then kind of coming back up at now, earnings looking pretty good back in May, so they kind of been on an upward swing. Closing right now pretty much right around near that upper band of that 52-week high. So Mr. Rock Lobster seems like someone out there at least is thinking the party's still going and willing to do 2x. You concurring, sir?
You know, I am. I'm looking at some of the open interest. They've had a lot of spiky, what I would call really smart paper, kind of loading up at a few times over the last year. So I'm looking at like early Jan, Feb, March. It almost is like this person is. I'm feeling like this could be a serial roller. With the last big volume is on the 6th of June or the 5th of June. So I'm looking at that and saying, and that's when Devon really fell apart when we had, I think, that kind of little mini tech wreck there, or that mini wreck. So I'm trying to get that date here really fast as I can, and they're not making it easy on me. But it does look like somebody has been serial rolling calls every month if you look at the volume report since the beginning of the year. And the way it looks, since Devon's gone from $29, $30 to $44 or $43, they've been doing pretty good. It's trying to retrace that whole move down at the beginning of this year. So I think, I can't remember, Tucson kind of likes the XLE. I've been waiting for the producers really to get off the ground, like the XOP stuff. Still, I mean, it's not as ugly as it was, but it really hasn't. I don't think it's participated near as much as everything else. But Devon is more of a, one of the big time producer distributor guys. So they certainly have gotten back. I guess XOP is off the mat a little bit. So. Anyway, be that as it may, we'll see how all that plays out. But I think this person in Devon is still. I think I think it's feeling like they're keeping the good times rolling. That's what I'm thinking. I can't disagree on this one. I want to play devil's advocate, but I can't.
Well, yeah, it's hard to disagree with this guy too. He's been pretty well timed. You put it back on the 5th, 25 those ACK calls back on the 5th for about 250 or so. So he's made 2 handles on those 25,000 times, and then putting that right back to work in Jan on the 50s. So this guy so far has been pretty well timed. So maybe you want to keep an eye on this fellow out here, listener. Speaking of well-timed, Mr. Rock Lobster had some well-timed put spreads, I believe, here in good old Walgreens today. Well, it was pretty much across the board in the drugstore segment, just taking it on the chin today. You guys probably saw that. Rite Aid, Walgreens, and CVS all taking it on the chin, losing about a collective $11 billion in market cap after it was announced that Amazon getting into their side of the space, picking up PillPack. PillPack is an online pharmacy, effectively allows them to ship prescriptions to 49 states. They made about $100 million in revenue last year, and now it looks like that's going to shake up the whole industry, because we all know whenever Amazon goes in somewhere, they cause a lot of ripples in their wake. So that seemed like that was weighing down on CVS in particular. The one was catching our eye today. CVS closing off 6% or over 4, about 4.25 handles, closing right around 65.78 or so. This is a name that does about 20,000 contracts a day. Today doing 81,000. Surprisingly, 2-to-1 calls over puts, which is not usually what you see on such a lopsided underlying day. And in particular, was one size ratio vertical, I suppose you can call it, that kind of caught our eye. Kicking it off this morning was the July 65.70 call spread ratio vertical, going up 2,500 times on the 65s for $1.70, pretty much right near the offer there, and then coming in to sell 2 of the 70s for 26 cents when the bid was 30. So a wee bit lower, probably a little bit out of sequence there. So doing it 1 by 2, but as the day went on, a lot more size piling into these strikes. Total of 11,570 going up with the July 70s. And of the 65s, we had a total of 9,240. So both of them well more than the OI there. 2,300 open on the 65s, 4,200 open on the 70s. So initially looked like a nice long 1 by 2, and then as the day went on, a lot more paper piling in, 9,400 by 11,500. So that ratio kind of fallen by the wayside. Kind of interesting. Also interesting to see someone potentially buying a call 1 by 2 into this sell-off. An interesting choice there. Again, probably why the calls were as robust out here today as they were, because of so much interest in these funky ratios. Let's look at the chart here for CVS. A year ago, it was trading about $82, so well north of where it is today, and then it hit a peak back in January, right around 84, close to it. Then it's kind of been selling off and kind of vacillating in this 60, pretty wide range, 60 to 82 range. So it's kind of been all over the place as the rumors have been percolating about Amazon getting into their realm. And then today, of course, it all hitting the fan with this call space. Mr. Rocklop, so let's start. You said you had some interesting intel on this whole deal, so start with that. And then you have any interesting thoughts on this one. What looks like it started off as a long 1 by 2, then a whole bunch more paper came in, and who knows what the heck the rest of it was, sir.
It's one of these things. I feel like if they were short the 66.5 puts into, because remember, Walgreens just got added to the Dow, I think a week ago. So if somebody, if they were rolling those, it feels like they bought those 66.5 puts, they were long them, and they're trying to dump them and then rolling down to another strike. It kind of feels like that type of paper. But intel on this is from one of our clients who's a kind of an expert in the drug industry, is just most of the generic business is just low margin. So there's not a lot of margin. There's not a lot of dollars to be had, selling like the $5, over-the-counter asthma pills, at least from that prescription drug business. So it's curious that Amazon wants to attack that. They want to attack that business. There's not a ton of margin in it, I think, right now. So that was his take on it. And he's usually pretty good about this stuff. So I am going to believe him. So everybody can take that for what it's worth. Is Walgreens a buying opportunity or not? I am long it. So I haven't bought some in like 63 a couple of weeks ago, adding more, and I'm probably going to buy more because it's hard for me to think that just the corner Walgreens is going away and it's a global business. I kind of think of Walgreens as sort of, I don't know, they're kind of Walmart-y in their space. Just people go there. And it's hard for me thinking that Amazon's just going to come in, and it's like sort of like Costco. Remember, Amazon was going to Costco. They took over Whole Foods, and they crushed Costco down to what, $150 or something. And I couldn't see Amazon doing what Costco does because it's like kind of a niche retailer. And I think it's sort of the same thing with Walgreens. People go in there and they buy their stuff, and it's just something they're going to sit down and spend time online. They're going to just walk into the drugstore and grab something. So I think this is the same thing. I'm putting my money where my mouth is a little bit. And there you go on. So that's my take on it. It doesn't mean it can't go lower in the meantime, though, if everybody decides to pile on.
That's true. If they can drive it down, and we've seen these Amazon effects sometimes be overblown in the past, so we shall see. Certainly, it looks like someone perhaps agreed with you, at least in that initial paper, before all that slew of other paper came filing in after the fact. So we'll keep an eye on this one. You guys agree, disagree? I'm sure you guys have your own thoughts on the retail drugstore sector and the Amazon effect, let us know. Hit us up. You guys are certainly not shy of sharing your opinions on these things as we wrap up with our final name. Lots of big macro things going on right now in the marketplace, so probably fitting we wrap things up with the PowerShares US Dollar Index Bullish. Said that 5 times fast. Also known as UUP, closing today 25.14, pretty much unched on the day. It's not a huge move in UUP, but a lot of paper. It's a name that does about 10,000 contracts a day. Today doing over 50,000, 52,000 to be precise. And it was pretty much of that 52,000, pretty much all of that. 45, 47 or so thousand looks like coming in a size, let's call it a put palooza out here in August, listeners. If I could scroll, there we go. If you scroll down yourselves, listeners, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It kind of jumps off the page. Total of 50,353 of these AUG 24 puts going up, Mr. Rock Lobster, for the whopping price of 4 cents. So pretty much right off. Some of them got up on splits for 3.1 cents, but the bulk of them for 4 cents going up here, pretty much on the offer right about there. Again, total of 50,000 going up today. Also worth noting, there is some size OI strike adjacent, shall we say. The AUG 25 puts also 50K open there. Those actually traded on the 26th. Those traded for 23 cents. So a couple of sessions ago, someone really liking the 25 puts 50,000 times for 23 cents, lifting the offer there. Then looks like perhaps maybe inspiring someone or someone else deciding to come in today and say, you know what, I'm going to also maybe pick up 50K of the AUG 24 puts. Certainly if they're selling these things and they're doing a $1 put spread for, 19 cents, that's not quite exciting. But that could certainly be the case. It doesn't look that way. It looks like they're piling in and themselves buying some more. Let's look here at the year that's been here. A year ago, UUP was trading right around $25, so pretty much where it is now. It's been a year of even though it had a range, but it's been a year of But you know what? If our friend here is correct, Mr. Rock Lobster, then perhaps that period of resounding meh maybe coming to an end. Are you feeling what this guy's feeling here on the downside of UUP?
UUP is never what it appears, right? It's kind of the dollar bullish, we'll just call it product. It's rallied pretty strong off the bottom. I mean, 10% rally or almost from the bottom. So this is one of those things where I never quite believe the paper in there. Like I almost feel like they're buying all those puts, but they're buying underlying somehow. It's just not I can see how they might be fading it because, all of a sudden we're not going to raise interest rates anymore. I think that is certainly possible, but I always feel like those huge put purchases are somehow against stock. But that is all tea leaving on that one. But if everybody's looking for the dollar to go down, what currencies are going to go up? That's my next thoughts. So I'm trying to think of which ones are going to fly out of the gate, like the euro. What are they going to do? The yen, the real. I don't know. The Russian ruble. Like what's going to fly? So, but certainly somebody's scooping a lot of puts at this point, and they're looking for the dollar to retrace. So, I can't say they're going to be wrong, but I feel like there's got to be there's some sort of long against all those putties they're buying. It's a lot of junk.
It is a lot of junk, quite a bit of junk, and very near-term junk as well. So you're right. Perhaps a bit of misleading near-term junk. If my stats were playing ball with me, I could tell you if there was a lot of size underlying going up today. But instead, we shall keep on rolling. Because unfortunately, alas, they are not. They are rebooting as we speak. So instead, we'll keep on rolling. See what the folks out there have chosen. It is time, listeners, for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
That might be one of my favorites, listeners. I just picture Uncle Mike stroking his cheek and his chin and saying, the strategy block. Welcome to the Strategy Block. This is the part you guys got to listen to the podcast now. That's just the only thing for it. Uncle Mike and Mr. Rock Lobster. This is, of course, the portion of the show where you guys speak and we listen. And this time we gave you 4 choices. We said, do you want to see people, or see Uncle Mike, I should say, talking about selling call spreads versus calls, or advanced order overview, or when to sell calls, or you want to break down the history of urban dance? And Uncle Mike, you'll be happy to know that after we talked about urban dance, the votes for that actually went down percentage-wise. So people piling into other things. I guess they were more serious than we thought. So history of urban dance only getting 15%, Stir. Instead, it looks like you're talking about when to sell a call spread versus when to sell a call. Have at it, sir. 31% choosing that.
Got it. Hey, I was all excited to tell about my experiences walking down the Vegas Strip at 1 a.m. and seeing a 10-year-old jumping on one hand, not 1 foot, one hand, doing a breakdancing display.
Oh. I kind of want to hear that now, too. You're teasing us.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe for the next thing, but it was quite the sight to see nonetheless. But anyway, selling a call spread versus selling a call, we had talked about this a little bit at my option club meeting last month, and I had a lady, she was selling a covered call on a pharmaceutical stock, and the pharmaceutical stock was at 300. I can't even remember which one it was, but then it went up to roughly $450, and she had sold, I believe it was the 310 call or something like that, and was real happy with the premium that she got. However, of course, watching that stock go way up is a little bit hard for the psyche to take when such a thing happens as a covered call trader. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you're selling covered calls, there's a maximum profit that exists in that once you actually go above your short strike price, you win so long as you stay above your short strike price. It's very much a black and white type of thing. Either you win or you lose. There's no how much you win or how much you lose, assuming you hold till expiration. It's kind of like pregnancy. Either you are or you aren't. There's no such thing as being a little bit pregnant. And that's kind of the mentality you need to have as a call seller if you're selling a covered call or selling a call against the stock with which you own. Now, with that being said, let's say that you've been burned a little bit in doing that, and maybe you're thinking, you know what, I really like the idea of collecting income on this, but for some odd reason, the stock just goes to the moon. I can't live with myself. I want to be able to participate in that upside. Well, you have the ability to do that by selling a call spread. So let's say XYZ stock is at $100 a share, and you want to sell the 110 covered call against it. Well, you can do that, but then you're thinking, you know what? I just think this stock has the potential to go up to 140 during that time frame. Well, one thing to consider is perhaps selling the 110, 115 call spread. And by doing that, you're still collecting an income. You'll still be getting premium, which is what you want as a covered call seller. However, the benefit of doing the call spread is that, let's say that the stock actually does go above the 110 level, and maybe in years past you've thought, perhaps I should roll up to this call. Perhaps I should get out of this and maybe take my profit now and move on to something else. You just have a lot of uncertainty. Like in the Thomas the Train show, it's causing confusion and delay as to what you want to do with your trading. And then you do what oftentimes people do when things get bad: when in danger or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. And that's the agony with which the traditional covered call is giving you. You got to call spread on all of those horrible feelings and emotions. They don't exist, because you can look at it and say, well, you know what? I know I'll miss out between 110 and 115, but anything above 115, I'm in great shape because I sold a call spread on it, not just a call. I got income on this stock, and yeah, I'm giving something up, but you know what? I also have unlimited upside, and I got income on this. Not a bad deal. So that's one thing to consider if you have my covered call is too far in the money blues. Now, here's the other side of the coin. no matter what trade you make in options, there's no advantage. There's no, how can I put it? There's no trade that's better than the other trade. They're all simply different. I even go so far as to say oftentimes that there's no such thing as a more risky or a less risky trade. It's just a different kind of risk. Now, granted, obviously selling a 100 lot on a stock is more risk than selling a 1 lot. But if you go apples to apples, contract to contract, there's no such thing as more or less risk. It's just a different shifted risk. Now, there's more monetary risk that can be involved. If you're selling a naked short put, obviously that's more monetary risk than simply buying a call option, but at the same strike. But you have less premium risk by selling the short put that you have in the buying the call. So with that, the thing to understand when selling call spreads against stocks that you own is that if the stock does not go that high, you are worse off for doing this. So in other words, let's go back to our example of selling the 110, 115 call spread on the XYZ stock that's trading at 100. If XYZ stock goes up to 108 and the call spread expires worthless, then you'd have been better off just selling the covered call. And throughout time, if that consistently happens, then yeah, all those horrible things that I talked about, you got rid of, but you had to pay to get rid of those things. You had to actually be a degenerate premium buyer when you were trying to be a degenerate premium seller. How can such a thing be? Well, it's about choices, folks. And so I think that if you can't handle or you don't want to give up all that upside, by all means, buy a call option, make it a call spread. I've done that over the course of the last few weeks, and it's definitely worked out for the better sometimes, and other times it hasn't. But overall, what's nice about it is that if the market is going higher, then I can rest easy and know, okay, if it does continue to go higher, then I have this ability. Also, some things that I do is I like to close out maybe the long side of it before expiration. And with that, perhaps I can salvage some of the long premium gain if it's gone my way. And I can close it out and I can move on to the next month. So a lot of advantages and disadvantages to doing both of them. But I really believe that this needs to be a tool in every covered call trader's toolbox. Final point that I want to make on this is that let's say that you have a wheel stock that you're using and you're selling premium month in, month out, and all of a sudden the stock's down in value after a couple months, and you've been selling premium on it on the way down. But now if you sell a covered call in an area where you've been selling it before, you're not going to get any premium because it's so far out of the money now. But you still like this as a wheel stock, but it would just kill you if you believe that this stock could come back to those levels, but you still want to have some income. You don't want it to be just dead money. Well, this is something to consider because this gives you a little bit of income. But what if this month is the big month for the stock? You know that you're not going to miss out on it coming back. So those are some thoughts for selling a call spread versus selling a call. And we'll see if we can talk about urban dance another time, perhaps. But don't know if I'm quite your expert on that one.
Well done, Uncle Mike. We'll have to wait for another time. And instead, we'll keep on rolling, see if we can get a couple of quick in with the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block. This is where you send in questions, comments, insights, aside from your views on Mexico, Maine, even though we welcome those as well. Let's see how many we could squeeze in here. We got a comment. I think it's coming in off our talk earlier this week and our last question of the week last week about different entertainment straddles, including WWE. Someone, Jack Daniels Trades. I guess that's how he powers his trading. A little bit of Jack Daniels. He says, "Pump me up, WWE. I don't fade. Huge TV deals for billions with many S's. Let's go." So I guess he's excited about. I guess he was a buyer of that WWE straddle. WWE rallying yet again, even though their TV deals are pretty much a done deal. I don't know. Interesting stuff out there. I guess big moves happening in sports entertainment. Let's see here. Here's an interesting one. I don't know if we're the best to discuss this, but perhaps we shall as well. Most of us are not really technicians. But Buddy Boy 79 wants to know, can you please explain what relative strength and weakness mean as they pertain to options trading? Uncle Mike, you probably are the most technical, easy for me to say, most technically inclined of all of us here on the show. So do you incorporate any relative strength or weakness into your options trading, or is that all just tomfoolery, sir?
I don't know if I'd call it tomfoolery, but I would just call it more a tool with which I am not very familiar. The RSI Relative Strength Index, it's something that people look at when trying to make technical decisions. I'm not much of a technician, but I do, when I am going to look at a chart, I look more at support and resistance or just the chart itself. I'm of the school of thought that I like keeping things simple. And there's nothing that, at least from my standpoint, nothing that any of the indicators are going to tell me, whether it's stochastics, whether it's RSI, or whatever the case may be. There's nothing that any of those are going to tell me that the actual chart itself won't tell me. So that's pretty much where I go with it. And so for RSI, don't want to badmouth it. I'm sure there's people that it works well for them, but it's just a tool with which I am not familiar.
Mr. Rock Lobster, anything to add on the RSI and its impact or lack thereof when it comes to options? I know you rely on it every day. That's what drove all your Walgreens trading, right?
Exactly, because it was overbought. So something's overbought, and then something's oversold, right? So that means the stock is higher or the stock is lower. So, it is. I'm sure some people can use it well. It's not something I potentially, I really use, but it's something looks oversold because it's at the bottom of a trough. So how oversold is oversold? I don't know. I wonder what the relative strength on Walgreens is going to look like tomorrow. It's probably not going to look very good. That's my guess. It's not going to be as high as it was the day before. That's guess number 2.
And the headline for this show, the title of the show is going to be Uncle Mike says RSI is tomfoolery. And we'll see. Direct all your angry emails to M. Tusaw. That's a great word for him to use. That's a total Uncle Mike word. Speaking of Uncle Mike, Pete Yarbrough chiming in. I guess he's listening now. He was also sad that the history of urban dance did not win the poll. He says it would be something special to see Tusaw throw down the cardboard on the sidewalk and bust out a windmill. So there you go, Uncle Mike. You've got supporters out there who want to see your breakdancing moves. You got anything in you?
Well, okay. It's funny you should mention that.
Now I'm really scared.
Oh yeah, the windmill's not my thing, but I true story. If I'm at a wedding, you will typically see me do the worm on the dance floor at 95% of the weddings with which I go to.
Wow.
My wife doesn't necessarily approve, but that is my special dance move with which I have. I am a worm specialist at age 40.
All right, Mr. Rocklops. Now we know what we have to do. We have to get Uncle Mike out to Mexico, Maine, load him up on tequila, then bring him to a wedding and see him bust out his moves. What do you think?
I think that would be great. I actually voted for the history of urban dance. I was kind of I wanted Tusaw to pontificate on that. So I thought I actually wanted to vote like 40 times, but I felt like that would be just
you know what? As we were talking, the numbers did move, and right now history of urban dance is actually winning with 33%. So if you had waited a few minutes, if Strategy Block was a few minutes later, Uncle Mike, you would have been holding court on the history of urban dance. So we'll have to maybe we'll have to table that one for next time. A lot of people out there sad.
Gotta wear one of those sombreros with guacamole in the top.
Yeah, dip it in.
Doing it.
It's tasty, functional, and delicious, just like our Around the Block segment.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
So much traffic today in our Around the Block segment. The car horns just everywhere. So much traffic in Mexico, Maine, as we wrap up here on the old Around the Block. A lot of macro trends lurking in the ether, smacking the market down, then lifting it back up. Trade war, will they, won't they? Who will they slap tariffs on? Will they push back? All this fun, immigration, you name it. all of that swirling in the heady mix that is the markets today. Crude oil, as Uncle Mike alluded to, back on the upper end, blowing through the 70 handle. So what does that mean for everything? All of this kind of coming back into focus as we look ahead here on the Around the Block segment. Let's start with you, Mr. Rock Lobster, while you're thinking about those delicious burritos and guacamole in Mexico, Maine. What else is on your radar, sir?
I'd like to see if the vol fatigue continues. And if we actually can just break kind of where we were at the beginning of the week when VIX wasn't certainly low, still zone 2-y, but, what's keeping the vol up here? It's just usually when the market wants the vol this high, there's something that, that's not totally obvious. And as we've said before on this show, we do not yet know what is behind this. Oh my gosh, it was a much better quote than I'm just thinking of right now. But the reason has not yet totally revealed itself to us while the vol is so high, I think. So we'll see. There is a little funk going on with financials. We didn't really cover them, but they've had kind of a bad couple weeks. So, there is just there's just marginally kind of crappy stuff, but nothing, I think, like 17 or 18 VIX crappy. So tomorrow we'll see where we are.
Indeed, we shall, and perhaps we'll see another VIX apocalypse, or perhaps another Walgreens apocalypse, which would bring a smile to. Actually, no, not anymore, because now you are long Walgreens, so that would make you sad. Instead, let's go with the VIX apocalypse, because that would keep the smile on the Rock Lobster's face. I wouldn't mind it as well, so we both could be happy there. Mr. Uncle Mike, in addition to your yearning to bust out the breakdancing moves, what else is on your radar, sir?
In addition to that, I want to see where we end the week at, because we did technically go below 270 this week, but I want to see if we can hold that level tomorrow going into the close. Should be an interesting day, to say the least, and just want to continue to watch things, and I think that the trade war is the big news right now, and we'll see where it goes. Earnings season's coming, though, so excited about that.
And unfortunately, I'm not excited to hear that music, listeners, because that means we've come to the end of yet another epic journey through the world of options. We started all the way out in the hinterlands of Mexico, Maine, and then we made it back to Uncle Mike at a wedding, doing the worm. All sorts of weird stuff on today's journey. A little bit of Tesla, a little bit of VIX, a little bit of Walgreens and Amazon thrown in there for your listening pleasure, as well as RSI. Who thought we'd talk RSI on the show? But then again, you guys like to throw us curveballs, which we appreciate. Keep them coming. Stay tuned. Of course, tomorrow we'll be coming back at you from the Southern studio with a little bit of vol views and a little bit of TWIFO. Noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern is the start time for all that goodness. So tune in tomorrow to join us for that. If you're listening to the podcast, then just stay where you are, because you'll get it automatically. You don't have to do a thing or lift a finger. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. We'll start with Uncle Mike. When he's not busy doing the worm, he's putting up some cool new stuff and a cool new fancy website over there at stcharleswealth.com. Uncle Mike, sir, what is cooking in the land of all things St. Charles Wealth?
All sorts of stuff at my office tonight in St. Charles at 303 East Main Street. We are having my option club meeting at 7 o'clock Chicago time. If you guys are in the area, stop on by. Spread trading is what we will talk about. And we'll talk about what's working for us and what's not working for us in the meeting as well. So we're excited. For more info on that, go to meetup.com and search St. Charles Investment Group. And with that, I am putting out a special offer, an impromptu offer. Check out my Facebook page on St. Charles Wealth Management, and if I can get 100 likes on that Facebook page between right now and next week's show, I will post a video of me doing the worm on the Facebook page.
100 likes. There you go, listeners.
I'm liking it.
I'll go over there and like it. You might have a better chance if it was Twitter. People really like to put stuff on Twitter, but maybe Facebook. We'll see what we can get done for you on the Facebook side as well. Get on over there, like it, make them do the worm for you, listeners. It's good stuff. And Mr. Rock Lobster, in addition to heading out to Mexico, Maine after the show is done, what else you got cooking, sir?
We have my new Made Easy series will be in August, which will be how to buy juice for free. I think it's going to be pretty popular. Priced right as usual. It's It's an 1/8 on a 10 lot. Not very much money to actually learn how to save yourself or make yourself some money. So that will be, look for that in August in Option Pit. Also my vol newsletter, which is still moving along nicely, is available at Option Pit. If you want to learn how to trade volatility and actually understand what makes vol move, you will subscribe and you get to ask me questions once a week. We talk about volatility and all that kind of good stuff. So people seem to like it. So as long as it keeps making some bucks, I guess they'll keep liking it. So that's where we are right now.
There you go, listeners. Check it out, optionpit.com, to learn more. And on behalf of the Rock Lobster and Uncle Mike and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for holding court with us on all things Mexico, Maine. And we'll see you back here tomorrow on the live network for Vol Views and Twifo. And we'll see you back here next week for more of the Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.